Yeah. Mr. Sunshine, Brandon is always great. More Brandon. There you go, Brandon.
That was the after ever
Yeah, I was wondering.
Because I did sunflowers, so sunshine is my handle.
You know what's the one historical way that the state and Hollywood Church in the
As we said,
what was that?
as we said,
Sort of, yeah, but more specifically with regards to marriage. But basically, you have these rivalries between Catholic and state.
Oh, good.
I mean, that's just a natural
Yeah.
way to
Yeah.
I need to be wed, so I guess I'm
I think ultimately the effectively happening in America is pretty continue. And a lot of people have a lot of signifiers that they're engaging with the meeting or that they need to for some reason, like whether it's they're inherently logical, like religious, so they're more about religious, and so they believe in science or some abstract way. I think it just comes down to the underlying social trends that people are not being so because there can be a way that these are identity factors that can be used to imply a level of righteousness that isn't reflected on that.
Right. Sam, you guys didn't have that with the Taliban on the Quran. They're saying the Quran told him to call Brian from Arizona a devil by name. Lafayette left cards at least the bombs we drop on hunters of Yemen that create orphans say BLM on them now. Yeah. Right-handed lefty. I'm pretty sure Dinesh D'Souza was a random caller a few weeks ago. We called him a few times to debate Sam about the inferiority and violent nature of black people. Brian from Michigan, I'm very worried that these school board protests are the right Joe's bar. I think that is a really salient point.
Where's Joe's point?
From our interviews.
I think the right schools, especially, the younger schools, younger kids in school a lot more interested they are, and they just understand that most of these things that I'm not all of they need to be heavily involved in restriction of curriculum that is just, again, social media, just like the marketing material, are becoming more inclusive to financial population.
Right. We're gonna read just like 5 more and then we're gonna get out of here. It's always snowy in Ottawa. Hi, Emma. Now that Sam has had his Saigon moment and you have seized power out from under him, can you use your newly realized power to have some Canadians undercover the Canadian federal election happening now? I was banking everything on using his boosted phone number and COVID release to cement the majority, and thus not be accountable for much corporate over people's supports needs yet to be national defense as to why we have an election on the 4th COVID wave might hit soon. I will write that down right now. I will try my best, even though we're all booked for next week, but maybe we can get something on Friday. The CIA narratives around the Afghanistan withdrawal followed through the media would suggest we should have done something different or do something different now. If it was going to fall immediately, why weren't we able to do anything about that over 20 years? Why would it be the case that we knew it would fall immediately? That would have been the ones that we would have been the ones to change that. So if the CIA knew it would, were they not involved the whole time? Why should we continue to elevate their position now?
Oh, we should have a discussion with it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on this, it's a extraction. It's a company, every company. There was never any real issue to build an issue where you can have a communication that either. It's just like this is what happens when American companies, are allowed to freely extract wealth from basically subservient population, population rock. And they do it in America too, but they do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And if he didn't, but it's more.
Yeah.
Fire Kowalski from Nebraska. Bill Maher has been kind of an anti-vax guy for a while. Bit of a boomer with bad takes more often than now in the last 10 years. Also, religion is a fool more often than not. Like, Ike called storming of Normandy and liberation of France as a noble crusade, like the Islamic Golden Age, was amazing and progressive compared to Europe until the power dynamic changed and the Mongols' ascension into Asia. Islam is still recovered from basically an apocalypse. Same Harris has no historical understanding either. It's just always Islam bad. We're just gonna read like 3 more, and then we're going to get out of here. I5 wolf watching obviously pays. Go wolf, go laughing all the way to the bank. I don't know what that means. I'm gonna hang up on the call, by the way. Clown Shoes Mike, who is really to blame though? This is a deep rabbit hole of eye for an eye. Do we blame the radicalized victims of imperialism more than the imperialists? What religion do the imperialists belong to? I totally agree.
That's it. I mean, nothing.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find some more AMs.
Don't need to be fair, but it's talking about in America, national and stuff like that. You know, they sometimes go out there and you know, it's really the ideology and motivation of this. I think that it occurs with people a lot of times, like Springfield, you know, they're not people who radicalize by not one, but you know, they're heritage two viewer, or you know, they are any number of forms of people that people who about for the war. No, I mean, do you even know why that guy shot Las Vegas yet?
No.
It was years ago, like in 2000 or something.
Do you have a theory on that?
I would think so.
There are a lot of good things. Well, like, it's just one of those things that, you know, that's a big gap in, you know, how we media or our narrative of society. That it ultimately is being left unfilled to be freedom by a pillar of
Boy keeps saying the same I am in, but I think it's a joke. Anyone who says the Jews pose no risk to them has never rented an apartment in NYC. Okay. Boy, jeez.
I just want to announce in this case that I am distance myself from a lot of problematic things that we said in the show today.
You're so further from me. I'm reading the I am, and it's not my thoughts. Although you are distance further from me, maybe I am Jason. You know, guys, it's a long show. I don't even read them until I start saying them. Okay, and the final I am of the day is somewhere around here. Matt Lex stole my girlfriend. Totally fair to critique religion, but not to be reductive. Give me Cornel West of Lamar Harris or an evangelical preacher any day. 100%. All right, guys, thank you so much. If Sam were here, he'd say great job. Great job. And I will see everybody tomorrow. Brandon, thanks so much for coming.
So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my transitions aren't up to snuff yet. I'm still in the awkward stage. All right, guys. And
Well, hi there, so here. So today we're going to talk about going back. We can do official back phase of this. I am off my game. I expected the national government to hold on a wee bit longer than it did, and I expected us to at least get out of the country before a bunch of politicians started talking about going back. Guess I'm wrong. You've had a couple senators now make statements in support of it. Most are kind of vague, stuff like American soldiers should stay, except for this. Two, stuff that's a little bit more specific, such as we need to maintain a little presence, a light footprint.
The idea is to get that token security force that would work them up again. But see that international poker game where everybody's cheating? Yeah. Other cards have been dealt and has moved on to the next hand. That's no longer an option. That window is closed. They'll need to read the ratings on it. So there we go. The plan, as it was laid out, is to basically establish a foreign operating base for a bunch of special operations people and that are running mitigation operations from there all over the country. Like many things, you can tell what will happen by what has happened. How does the opposition take the country? Because they started making seeding areas with their people, beard shaved, limited with the population. Then, when the time was right, they merged. That's why there wasn't a lot of merging. They were able to do something. If a foreign operating base is dropped in all that country, the military backup, because we want to establish a white footprint. The opposition will see the area around the personnel. Then perceptibly, they will move their people in. So they will do it, just to hang out, and then one day, those special guys, the target they can't pass up. They're going to get a golden opportunity on the other side of the country. And those helicopters are going to take. And that's when the opposition will form up. And again, they're not going to do it, not right away. They're going to wait until those helicopters hit it with a distance. And then they're going to that base. That is what will happen if this is attempted like this. This is the worst idea in a long string of bad ideas. You've been dying for a Vietnam analogy. We're going to get one. Give in to it. This is a really, really bad idea. That token security force, that window is closed. The United States and its allies do not have effective control of the countries the opposition does. It will see it. It will overrun that place. If you want to go back, you got to go back. You're basically going to refight the entire war because the opposition has control of the country. You have to refight the entire war and then you can fall back and reduce troop levels and get to that token security force. I'm sure the troops will be home by Christmas. It's also worth noting that ideally that token security force wasn't American because of the history of our presence. The United States has a reason to go right now, and is just desperately thrashing about, trying to come up with something, cling to something to make this less of a value. It's the wrong game. If the U.S. goes back in, it will end the same way because we have learned nothing, as is very apparent. There is one priority right now, and that is the preservation of human life. Getting people out, getting the Americans out, getting the Allies out, getting any refugee that wants to go out. That should be the goal. That's what matters. Nothing else. The geopolitical concerns, the time for trying to stabilize, all of that stuff is over. You can't put the genie back in the bottle on this one. It's done. I would guess that the politicians will continue this kind of rhetoric. You need to be ready for it. You need to be ready to oppose it. Because they will pull the human rights cards, they will pull the funding cards, they're going to pull it all out. I don't think I need to. It's just more of a heads up It's coming. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day. Well, I have there people listening down. So today we're going to talk about who's to blame for all of this, because that's the topic that is dominating the headlines, right? Sure. Who do we point the finger at? Republican, Democrat, red, blue, often. Who's to blame? Which president carries the most for it? So we're going to talk about. You can start with Bush, right? Why is the place to start? And he started this. And he allowed Mission Creek. And he privatized. And he enacted a lot of policies that drove recruitment for the opposition. And then he started out in 2003 with Obama, diverted resources. A lot of money. Then you look at Obama, right? What do you know? Who carried on many of the same policies and escalated the use of unmanned aircraft, which drove recruitment for the opposition. Then you go on to Trump, who set the chain of events in motion that we have seen the conclusion of now. He went in there acting like it was a real estate deal, legitimized the opposition, and made some deals that weren't the brightest. Then you have President Bush, who honestly tried to make it work, but it didn't work. And he is commander in chief. He has some line too. This is not a Republican Democrat thing, not at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. Every president that has presided over this war has made major mistakes. Objectively, who's the most to blame? Bush is, without a doubt, the most to blame for this. If you are looking at it through the lens of decisions that led to this. Okay. Who I blame the most, personally, it's really backhanded, but President Obama. President Obama. Not because he made any decisions that were worse than the other three, but because I honestly believe he's much smarter. I should know that. Because I think he's the smartest of these people. I hold him to a higher standard. Trump set all of this in motion. He did. And there's no denying it. And you can go to the foreign policy playlist on our channel that I can watch. Everything that we've seen now, you know, so it was going to happen more than a year ago, exactly the way that it wasn't hard to see this coming. That being said, if you go back and watch those videos, your videos, you understand, I have mouthful punches from President Trump. I think he's one of the worst presidents in American history. I make a point to say that on that one day, I don't know what he did with this. There were things that could have Trump, like they took the security forces. But at the end of the day, that's the last ditch. Literally handing the conflict off to somebody else. And it's a second one. It's still not a win. So, yeah, there's definitely blame there. Because he did make these deals. He did make the commitments. And then you have Biden, who's presiding over the exit. Doesn't matter that he tried to do the right thing. He's committed to achieve. He has the right to. But see, that's only part of the story. These four men, why did they make the decisions they did? What guys? Politics. And when we say that, we make it seem as if it's something that they do on their own. When you're talking about decision making at this level, you look guys that are playing politics, polls. We're standing here looking for somebody blind, trying to figure out which president is the one. We're standing here screaming, who killed the Kennedys? All of you and me. We're responsible. Right now, oh yeah, all the polls, people are definitely in favor of leaving. That wasn't the case in 2001, 2004, 2006, 2012. When politicians play politics, they're really polling numbers, trying to figure out what is most political intentions. Who's to blame? We. Because we didn't make enough noise when Mission Creek said that. We didn't make enough noise when that other war started. We didn't make enough noise when policies were enacted. It should have been an affront to American people. Really. But the saddest part about all of this is that it will happen. Because we're standing here working out, talking about good life. That's not very conducive to start with. If you can personify this whole thing as somebody's folly, well, it's all their fault, and we don't have to change anything we do. And that's what it seems like people are looking for. A fault. I don't think that's the right way to do this. If we do this, if we lay this film at one person's feet, at the president's feet, whichever one you want to choose, it will happen. Because we will learn that. Right now, who's blind? That doesn't matter. The president of the country, yes. That's what we should be talking about. And how to mitigate the effects of this film. Because people right now are focused on, oh, look, here's this footage. This is going to go on. They're going to reclaim this country. They're going to need help. There are going to be economic considerations when it comes to helping them. And we need to get ready for this. This is our mess. Looking for somebody to blame so we can wash our hands of it. All that is going to ensure is that another generation from now, when people forget what it's like, that happens again. At the same time, you have those engaged in sunk cost fallacy, right? We have to fix it. We have to make sure that things go our way to honor our veterans. Said before, I say it again, the best thing that you can do for our veterans is to make sure that we stop creating content veterans. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day. Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So today we're going to talk about your questions about over there. I have a giant list of questions we're going to go through that came from y'all. In this conversation, we're going to talk about what is. We're going to talk about reality without spin. We're not going to project a lot of ideology into this. The reason many of these questions exist is because major media outlets and a lot of pundits are inserting what they wish into the narratives. So the narratives are confusing, generating questions. For the sake of continuity during this, those who watch these videos later, I will refer to the side that the United States has been helping for 20 years as the national government. The side the U.S. was opposing for 20 years as the opposition. It is worth noting at this point, the opposition is the de facto government. Okay, so let's get started. These questions are in no particular order. What about selling the equipment to fund their evil ambitions? Yesterday, I put out a video talking about the equipment that was left behind. Some of it was U.S. equipment, some of it was equipment the U.S. had provided to the national government, and now it's in the hands of the government. There have been reports of the equipment being sold on, quote, the black market. First, that's not the black market, that's just the market. It's Afghanistan, not the United States. Second, that's normal. Their military is not structured like ours. Local commanders kind of have a spoil system. It's going to be sold and they'll pocket cash. Is this going to be used to fund them? No. Again, the opposition is now the de facto government. If they sold everything that the U.S. put into that country, it doesn't come close to what they're going to get from lithium alone. They're the government. So it's not going to change the dynamics. What about using the equipment against civilians? Okay, from an ideological standpoint, briefly, yes, every bullet matters. From a practical one, it doesn't change the dynamics. Picture a mop bucket full of water. The water are the opposition supplies prior to their offensive. They are now the government. So take that mop bucket and throw it into a swimming pool. Those are the supplies now. Now picture a Dasani bottle. And you open the bottle and fill the cap with water and pour that into the pool. That's what they got. Well, yes, it's not ideal. It doesn't shift the dynamics of what's going on. It's worth noting that without any of this, they were capable of retaking the country in less than a month. Tracking down those who helped. Yeah, okay, so the biometrics. That is an issue. But it's also worth noting that the opposition has had that equipment for 5 years. It is more of an issue now because they're the de facto government. They have a lot more free reign to employ. This is going to be an issue for those trying to leave. Aside from that, not so much. I think people in the United States have the image of some kind of trial or tribunal or something like that. It's not how it's going to work. The opposition is going to flip somebody. They're going to give them a name. The person's going to give them a name. The opposition is going to go to their house. Ask them a couple of questions, and that's it. There's not going to be a high burden of proof required before action is taken. The biometrics is only going to really be a game changer when it comes to checkpoints. And it's going to matter a lot there. But again, they've already had that money. It's whether or not they're going to be able to employ it in any real fashion. What about using seized equipment to go after neighboring countries? They won't. The opposition does not have expansionist designs. And neighboring countries are more than capable of dealing with that. It wasn't incredibly successful. What about the holdouts under the BDP? Okay, so the vice president is actually not the acting president because the president of the national government flag. He's in an area that used to be controlled by the Northern Alliance, rallying support to dislodge the opposition. If there is anything currently in that country that stands a snowball's chance of dislodging them, it's him and his crew. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. It depends on the amount of support he can muster. And that depends on how the opposition behaves. If they are less repressive, he may not get any support. They have a snowball's chance. I wish him the best. If there is a chance, it's them. I don't, it's not a big chance. It's pretty unlikely that they're going to pull it off, but it's possible. Will there be a continued societal presence? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no qualification there. Yes, there will be. Will the opposition be nicer to women as promised? Yes, probably, but nowhere near what other people might be expecting. It's been 20 years. History has a way, years passing has a way of making things more liberal. So they probably will have evolved a little bit on this topic. But it's not going to be anywhere near what Western standards would. So the idea that it's going to be the same as it was under the national government, that's really unlikely. But there probably will be some better treatment. But that's also going to be based on locality. I can get that as these questions progress, I'm sure. Would evacuations go smoothly without base closures? This is an interesting question and something that should really be looked into. The idea being that if we didn't close the bases, we would have more points to get people out from. That makes sense. However, the holdup right now is not getting them on the plane to get them out, it's having a place for them to lay. It would stand to reason at a cursory glance that with more locations, it might have gone smoother, but probably not. Really get into it, what you would probably have is the same footage that you're seeing at the airport occurring at multiple locations. Then you have to factor in the risk that comes with the opposition lashing out against one of those locations, and there being no reinforcements to come back to that because everybody's occupied doing something. Then you also have the risk of a bunch of scared, panicked people overrunning that installation, and U.S. soldiers who are also scared and panicked responding in a hurry. I think what people are looking for is some way for this not to look the way it does. This is what it looks like. This is what the end of these interventions looks like. There's not much that can be done to shut them. Any chance equipment left was a Trojan horse? I'm sure that some of it was doctored. We're never going to get a full account. Because a lot of times that's done by individuals without orders. We'll never know how much, but I am certain that some of the equipment there is going to be more dangerous to the user than anybody else. That's a certainty. Why are they saying we don't have the capability to go get them? Them being stragglers all over the country. This was bad messaging. So the United States military, of course, has the tactical capability to drop in and extract them. There are units within the U.S. military that can do that with a greater than 99% success rate. However, there are more than 1,000 packages all over the country, more than 1,000 people that need to be rounded up, which pretty much guarantees a catastrophic failure at some point. So from a strategic standpoint, from a political point, it is unlikely that the Department of Defense is going to slap a loaded D sheet on top of everything else that's going on. As the numbers of stragglers drop because they find their own way out or get their way, get themselves to the airport, those types of initiatives become more. Right now, there's a whole lot of people on their own. Could the withdrawal have gone down? This is what it looks like. Sure, in raw numbers, which is important, have we started evacuations the day this chain of events was set in motion more than a year ago? Raw numbers will review. But at the end, it's always going to look like this because people won't take it seriously. That's not really going to happen like the travel advisories. The information was out there for people to accept it. Look at the public health stuff in the United States. People have a hard time accepting bad news, and then when it becomes apparent that that's how it's going to play out, many times it's too late, or it becomes chaotic, as you see that. How will the opposition run the government? That's a good question. The leadership is smart. Again, not ignorant of people. However, they're field commanders. They don't know a whole lot about city planning. So what is likely to happen is that a lot of bureaucrats who are currently in the job, they're going to stay in the job. The opposition will have some kind of council, and on that council, only a few people's opinions will really matter. And that will establish minimum rule sets for the whole country. Meaning, do this or don't do this. Outside of that, local commanders who become community leaders, they're going to have a pretty wide range of what they can do. There's going to be a lot of, there will be a lot of difference in how different areas are done. It's very few. Possibility of resistance underground movements developing incredibly high. Without a doubt in my mind, there will stay behind networks established. Whether or not they become active, we don't know. Depends on how aggressive the opposition is. If they're not that bad, then they stay on their front. We don't know. But do they exist? Yes. Opposition says they want peace and inclusivity, but their actions on the ground are different. Yeah, it's not like the U.S. military. The commanders, people at the very top, they establish minimum rule sets. Outside of that, there's a lot of free reign. So they may take things right up to the point of not violating what the top leadership said. How that's going to shape out over time, we're going to have to know. Because those at the very top understand they haven't chipped into a big game. We're talking head of state. So they may be willing to be a little bit more liberal than they portray themselves in the past, because in the past they had to maintain this radical image to keep people motivated. The most radical revolutionary becomes a conservative the day after. So they may be a little bit more inclusive because they want to maintain control. It's not power. Okay, we need to get a breakdown of how they're actually taking over territory. Is it mostly the negotiation with local leaders, or but in many cases, the opposition shows up. They're like, hey, you're a colonel with the national government. You know you can't beat us. Why don't you just come to our side? Then you will be safe and taken care of. And the person they're talking to is like, it's got to. And what's up? That happened. How critical is cash? Will freezing of banks result in pay issues for fighters and regions? Now, if they run low on cash, they'll just take it from the The U.S. government has to make this move because, again, now they're dealing with a government. They're dealing with the de facto government. I don't know that other nations are going to follow through, so the banks just can't. How sophisticated is the equipment we left behind? It's not. I did a video on this yesterday. It's really not. It's getting out like the Kobayashi Maru. What a nerdy reference, and one that I get. Yeah, it is. At this point, if you're trying to withdraw from a nation that has active opposition and you never got that nation before where to stand on its own, yeah, it's always going. You're always going. It's always going. Why was Biden admin so unprepared for the scoop of the country? Okay, so I was probably one of the more pessimistic voices when it comes to how long I expected the national government to last. Even I gave them 2 more weeks. I would imagine those that are advising DOD, they probably didn't want to point out that DOD never got ready for this type of total job. So their estimates were a little more crazy. Because they walked in there and said, hey, they're not going to last a month. DOD would have to admit that they didn't prepare them for this. I know 2 advisors who want to do this privately who said, they're not going to last a day. But those are the only people I know that were aware of how ill prepared the national government was. Where were the Afghanistan armed forces? They collapsed. The U.S. trained them to fight the way the U.S. fights, with air support, fire support, and intelligence and surveillance platforms and stuff like that. And when we left, we took it all. They were never prepared to fight that level of opposition. The opposition knows what they're doing. They can do it road tactic. In some ways, it may have saved a lot of people that the national government collapsed as quickly as it did because it really all war weapons turnovers negotiated prior to all combat. I get this question a lot. The idea that people in the U.S. kind of set this in motion, it's kind of conspiratorial. I don't think that that's what happened, and it's not because I don't think that the previous administration would sell out like that, because I don't think that's this appears to be pretty organic and mainly fear-based for those people who are able to accurately assess their capabilities versus the opposition. What happens to Blackwater plans? If there is a silver lining, it's that their cash cows. In order for them to continue to make money, the national government had to stay in place. Which they will do next. Study this over and over and over again until they realize that the world has to come up with a process to politically bankrupt nations go through a chain of events that leads them to coming up the other side of that chain as capable to stop relying on military intervention. Why do we ever go to that? We covered that in the What's the likely scenario for the majority of the refugees that we create over there? Nothing. Whenever they go on. We started as soon as the deal was done, as soon as this chain of events was put in motion, we never did. So now there is a slim chance that the opposition is being honest and that they're just going to try to limit their moves to those who were central to the U.S. being there. But if they decide to go, it's they or the opposition representative of the Afghan population. Is this the rule of oppressed people taking over city dwellers like so much, taking on city dwellers like so much of American politics? They're not represented. The average person in Afghanistan wants the same thing that the average person all over the world wants, to live their life and love their life. They're having a change of boss. Their betters are shifting from one group to another. Most of them, they just want their lives. That's what most people all over the world want. Is as much as we like to pretend that there's a goal between us, there's not. If there's a lesson for Americans to learn about this, it's that all the rhetoric that was thrown out about civil war and all of this stuff is based on the idea that the good guys always win. That's not where it comes. A lot of times they don't. And in this case, we didn't really have any objective good guys. It just so happens that the objective bad guy won. We have to tone down our rhetoric in the United States when it comes to stuff like this. Well, what we're seeing over there, we will see here. This is what it looks like. For a long time, a lot of the news that came out of the military said, what you're seeing now. And it's always like that. People look to find blame, it's everybody. It's everybody. Everybody who had a hand in this has something done. Every leader, every person, every senator, every congressperson, everybody on the oversight committees, they all had to have known on some level that this was going to be the outcome. It's the only way it could be. Anyway, it's just a thought. Yeah, I did that.